Welcome, everybody. This is the No Politics Podcast. I am your host, Working Genius, here with my co-host, Faking No Moves. It is Sunday, January 8th. By the time you're listening to this, it'll probably be the morning of Monday, January 9th, 2017. So good morning to everybody. You're probably a bit confused as to why I am leading this podcast. But one, it's a special Sunday edition. We calling this the NFL Wildcard Round Recap Edition. Two, the reason I'm leading this is because Faking No Moves is trying to gather himself over there. I figured I'd give him a chance to, gather his thoughts. Coming off a heart-crushing loss.
Fuck the Giants. Fuck them.
So this one's going to be a little different. We're going to talk about sports, NFL first and foremost, and then we're going to get into a little bit of wrestling because with the new handicap match that Raw just announced between Roman Reigns and Jericho and Owens, we wanted to get into that a little bit, as well as some Wrestlemania Card predictions, which we haven't done yet. So this should be a good show. We about to get into it. Let's see. You want to start?
Let's get it popping. First and foremost, the playoffs started on Saturday. First game of the playoffs was Houston versus Oakland in a battle of the non-quarterbacks, but one of them decided to show up. And we talked a lot of shit about this guy, but I think he had his best game of the season.
But that isn't saying much.
It isn't saying much, nope.
I believe I'm going to run the numbers off the top of my head. I want to say he was about 14 for 29 or something like that. 165 yards. Maybe a touchdown or two. No picks, though. He didn't turn the ball over, which is what needed to happen for them to win.
Major key for him.
Major.
Yeah.
For them to win. And it wasn't quite as low scoring as we predicted. We'll also recap our predictions today now that we can. It wasn't as low scoring as we predicted, but it was as boring as we predicted. I mean, Oakland couldn't really move the ball. Houston did what it had to do. They moved the ball better than I expected. They got Hopkins involved. Whenever you could get Hopkins involved, that's my man. Whenever you could get Hopkins involved, it should be a good day.
You're right, man. And we talked about that. Like, he doesn't get Hopkins involved enough. And I think I texted you when Hopkins had like that 40-yard catch or something like that. And I was like, Hopkins just had his best catch of the whole fucking season. And I was even asking you because I know you are DeAndre Hopkins owner in fantasy football. So I was like, how many touchdowns did he even have this season? Because I don't think it was much or what I expected from him, because with bad quarterbacks, he has done good in the past. And then I'm thinking Brock Osweiler, they signed him up. He's going to be on a roll, breakout year for him. But, sadly it wasn't. But, hey, they did what they had to do to win this game.
Yeah, when you asked me that off the top of my head, I think I said he had about 3 touchdowns maybe this year. It wasn't very much at all. It just wasn't a good year for him. Not his fault, obviously. Past that, though, Texans got a good win. Our predictions were, I believe I said something like 14-10. I think you said something like 14-7.
Yeah.
Both kind of way off. It was. Yeah. I believe the final score was.
I mean, I figured it was going to be a defensive game. You even mentioned, like, if they Raiders could get a defensive score, then that would say something about where this game is going to go. But all in all, it was sad to see them make it this far. And, like, the lead up to it was the fact that they haven't been in the postseason in 12 years. Or not even since 2002. That's what? 15 years now. Yeah. And I'm like, man, they make it here, and Derek Carr is not there. The guy who was leading the pack, he is hands down the leader of that team, and they just didn't have that leadership presence there, and it was crazy, man. It was sad to see.
I mean, it shows. The first Super Bowl I actually watched was the Raiders-Bucks Super Bowl in, I believe, 2002. So, yeah, it's been a while. I can attest to the feeling of 15 years it's been. But They really, like I said, they weren't going to be much of a threat without Carr. And that showed. The Texans ended up being the team that got the defensive touchdown.
Right.
And they ended up pulling away.
And they had a few good defensive stops and moments. But moving on, the I guess you could say the prime time game of that of yesterday was Seahawks versus Lions. I think we both predicted Seahawks to win on the podcast, but after the podcast, I started changing my tune a little. I wanted the Lions to, get that upset, but, you know, the way I thought Seattle was going to score, Detroit scored that way. So that just goes to say how much my predictions were meant anything.
I believe you actually did say that you thought the Lions were going to upset them on the podcast. I believe you did say it on the podcast. I thought that the Seahawks would win. I didn't have much faith in the Seahawks, though. I mean, they haven't looked good to me offensively, even defensively. But I think it's safe to say they kind of looked like the old Seahawks, which I don't want to say that they are back to their normal selves, but Detroit just struggled to get anything going, and the Seahawks did well moving the ball. Thomas Rawls had a hell of a day, and that's my man right there. I love that guy's energy. And
MVP of the
so ultimately, what did I say? I think I said like 27, 24 if the Seahawks could score that much. And what did it end up being? It ended up being like 26-6. It wasn't Detroit couldn't move. I thought that Stafford would be able to move the ball, and I was horribly wrong on that one.
That was crazy. That was another game that, was shocking, the result. Like, not the fact that Seahawks won, but the way they won. You know what I mean? So it was kind of shocking, but at the same time, boring.
Yeah, the two Saturday games didn't keep me intrigued. I actually took a nap during the Texans game. When you sent me that text about DeAndre Hopkins, gotta come clean, I woke up. I was like, what? What happened? I was not involved at all at that point. But so moving on, we can move to the Sunday games.
Yeah, baby.
Which were much better. I mean, the last game was much better.
The main event.
The main event, which I'm surprised we didn't just start off with that one.
The money fight. The main event.
There we go, exactly. But first, got to get into the Steelers-Dolphins game. How'd you feel about that one?
Steelers-Dolphins, that's one where I picked the upset again. I wanted Dolphins to win. I said Matt Morris, since he's replaced Tannehill, he hasn't really dropped off or looked bad, but I spoke too soon. Because how many times did they get to the end zone? Goal line work, basically. Probably like 5 yards, 10 yards away from the goal line, and they didn't have no receivers open, and then big defensive plays, making him fumble. I don't know, man. Like, Steelers showed up. And I talked about it, too. Me and you mentioned the fact that Miami beat Pittsburgh early in the season. And it's like they came in just looking for revenge. Yo, Le'Veon Bell, you know what I'm saying? He Jay Ajayi and the Dolphins, so it was a good game.
Yeah, this one was over pretty quickly. I believe it was you that said on the podcast, you said you were going with the upset with the Dolphins win, but if AB started off with a 30-yard touchdown, you could see the Steelers running away with it. And I actually corrected you as a joke in that moment. I said 50. And he ended up scoring exactly a 50-yard touchdown. And that was pretty much all she wrote. I mean, he ended up adding a 62-yard touchdown later in the game. My prediction, I don't think you didn't actually predict a score for this one, but I predicted 31-13, and the score was 30-12. So we were pretty much right on. You can only get this kind of insight at the No Politics podcast. So.
And from Working Genius,
Yeah,
he literally is the Working Genius. You know what I mean?
Sometimes I say numbers and sometimes they hit. You feel me? Come to me for lottery.
Not only is he Working Genius, he's Puerto Rican, so he's good with numbers.
But moving on, I believe the last game. I don't know if you want to talk about this. I don't know if you're ready to talk about this.
All right, I'll start it off, man. I'm sorry to cut you off, but I got to come in hot the way the Giants came in because we were looking good. That whole first quarter, even though we only scored 3 points, Odell Beckham dropped a big pass in the end zone, but our defense was on one. And the thing is, I was listening to the commentators. They were talking about Aaron Rodgers was like, I'm used to playing in this weather, so I know what it takes to, like, basically saying, like, I know how to last in this weather and heat up in this weather. They don't. Basically, kind of like predicting they were going to come out hot and then maybe fall off later on, fourth quarter, due to the conditions and just the crowd and momentum. But it was fucking cold out there. It was freezing. Best believe that played a factor.
I like that you mentioned that Rodgers thing, not to cut you off, because I hadn't heard that. I had never heard that. But that's interesting because like the Giants, like you said, the Giants came out hot and kind of trailed off, whereas the Packers didn't, and they heated up. They were able to heat up.
You know what else Roger said? And you know what? This just goes to show, man. I give respect where respect is due. I feel the Giants are going to learn from this game. This is Odell's first playoff game. This is a lot of those players' first playoff games on with the Giants, at least, as one. But Roger said, I respect the Giants, but I'm not scared of them. And that's the difference. That's the difference. You know what I'm saying? That was major to me when he said that because that just shows 5 sacks. It don't matter how many times you sack me. Don't matter how good that defense is. I'm going to keep going, keep pushing because we're in the game. It's 4 quarters. You know what I mean? And that's what Rodgers represents. And that first touchdown, the way he broke, like, he maneuvered through his men to not get sacked, and then he found Devontae Adams. Psh, I gotta give respect. That was hot.
Beautiful.
That was hot.
That was beautiful. I'm actually surprised he said he wasn't scared of the Giants because you know what I was talking about. I just feel like so many teams fold in front of the Giants. It's a weird thing that happens, and to be honest, I don't know how much of that was your defense early on as much as it was Rodgers struggling. He was holding on to the ball way too long, and Rodgers likes to hold on to the ball, yes, because he likes to make plays happen, and with his feet in the pocket, he moves around, and then he eventually finds someone open as the secondary breaks down throughout the play. But I believe I said this to one of my friends in our fantasy football group chat during the game, that Rodgers holding on to the ball in the pocket is very similar to how they mentioned Jay Cutler tries to force passes into tight windows, because just that overconfidence in his arm is kind of like Rodgers' overconfidence moving around that pocket to create downfield, and it was costing them early in that game, and eventually later in the day though, those plays worked out. That touchdown to Adams was beautiful. The Hail Mary was ridiculous. Just once that kind of happened, like you said, y'all came out good in the first quarter. Y'all had a good 25% of the game. It was a solid 25% of the game, but the other 75%, it just kind of broke down.
Yeah, man, and it all started with that Hail Mary. Once halftime, I mean, let's shout out a guy I had in fantasy football, Randall Cobb, even though it took him this long to fucking show up. Nah, but I'm not gonna go that hard. But honestly, from there it was all over, and some weird shit happened to me. The universe just wasn't on the New York Giants side because Popeyes don't fuck with New York Giants. But it's all good. It's all good. Me and you spoke on that. I'm not gonna dwell too much into that. We'll let the listeners.
What you want them to guess? You want them to guess what happened? I was actually going to throw you the alley-oop and let you tell the story, but if you don't want to tell it...
I don't, because they fucked up my whole, viewing process of the match, because I missed the whole third quarter by the time I got back from Popeyes, because for some reason, Popeyes was hot for halftime, It was popping off on halftime in Popeyes. Everybody wanted to go, so they was backed up, and the mild chicken was going to take like 12 minutes to make, and I was about to snap, something. And Snapchat, I'm mad with you too, because my phone died. But we'll move on.
As you can see, Faking No Moves is a bit devastated, which is another reason why I had to lead this podcast in today. But before we move on, I just wanted to say that I said it. I'm not scared of that Giants defense. And teams always come out flat against y'all. They always do. They refuse to take shots early. They just don't look like themselves when they come out against y'all. It's like a fear thing or it's like a respect thing. Like, I respect the Giants, so I'm not going to just try to throw it on them. But, like, I don't know. I'm just not scared of y'all. I would attack y'all. If I'm the Falcons and we had to play the Giants, the first thing I do is I take a deep shot. Respect us. Back it up. Back it up. You gonna give us some room. You know what I mean? And sometimes teams come out and they look scared to take shots and they look scared to come out aggressively against the Giants. But I wasn't scared of y'all, and it proved right today.
Yeah. I don't got much else to say, but it was a good game all in all, and it's going to be a learning experience for the young players on the Giants organization, and Aaron Rodgers is going to face Dak Prescott and the Dallas Cowboys, and I look forward to seeing that because nonetheless, overall, I love football. You know what I mean? So I love these matchups, and I love the playoffs, and I look forward to seeing Atlanta versus Seattle. You know how that game ended during the season, the no call on Julio Jones.
I'm glad you transitioned into next week's matchups. I didn't know if you wanted to make predictions into next week's because we could always save that for the Wednesday edition, which we might do. But as far as the teams left, yeah, the Falcons will take on the Seahawks. I'm excited about that. I kept saying that I wanted to see the Seahawks because I know we'll destroy the Seahawks. And that's no cockiness. This is like a revenge game for us. And you know what happened? It was 3 years ago, or it might have been like 4 years ago, the last time Seattle came into Atlanta for a playoff game. It was actually a divisional game. Same kind of situation. We were coming off the bye. And that was a roller coaster of a game. I don't know if y'all remember that. We went up early. They came back in the fourth quarter, and we had to get a game-winning field goal to win it. Nerve-wracking, but hopefully it's not the same kind of story. Hopefully we come out and punch them in their face and
That was 2013?
I believe it was 2013.
Okay, yeah, that was the year my daughter was born. Actually, that was her birthday that day.
Wow.
I was having a birthday party I remember because we were in my daughter's mother and their family. They have a church that they go to in the basement, so they had the game on. Well, I put it on because I wanted to see it. You know what I mean? But yeah, that was a good game. I look forward to next week. Let's also not forget New England faces Kansas City. No. New England faces Houston and Kansas City Steelers. The Steelers lost to Kansas City earlier in the year, so that's no. They beat Kansas City early in the year, so they're talking about Kansas City wanting revenge on them. Like you said, it's a revenge game.
I mean, to me, aside from, the two NFC matchups they look like they're going to be great matchups. Cowboys Packers should be good, and Falcons Seattle should be good. Steelers KC though, that one is honestly I cannot predict that one. It's in Arrowhead. Normally I would just say Steelers, but it's in Arrowhead, and that's gonna make it tough for me. And so I'm not sure. The Patriots Texans one is the one I'm least interested in. I think that should be a easy win.
I'm interested. I'll admit it. I want to see Tom Brady do work. Let me see what Tom Brady's gonna do. Let's see. Because you know what? The defense, but then let's see, is Houston's defense going to be feeling themselves and continue the momentum? They played really good against Connor Cook, but now they got Brady. Let's see what happens.
Now they got an L in their future, basically. But to move on, now that we're off of football, we're going to save our predictions for the Wednesday edition of the No Politics podcast. So if you want to know our predictions, you got to tune in. Remember, I was 4 for 4 this week. So if you want some predictions to take to Vegas, you want some predictions to bank on, you already know. Tune into the No Politics podcast. Working Genius predictions coming Wednesday.
Yep.
But to move on, another thing I wanted to get into was Monday Night Raw announced a handicap match, as I mentioned earlier in the podcast. Roman Reigns versus Jericho and Owens for the United States title. And this was announced later in the week, so we didn't get to talk about it on last week's podcast. So I'm glad we're able to talk about it now before Raw tomorrow night. So, what are your thoughts right off the bat? I wonder what you feel about the match itself and your thoughts, because I got some thoughts on just the match itself. So go for it.
My first thoughts when I think about that is like how you've mentioned, Raw keeps putting the same people in the same matches. And you were telling me yesterday about a funny statistic about Roman Reigns' matches on Raw. And I've heard it somewhere else now as well. So that says a lot. But all in all, I'm not mad at the match because I would love to see, somehow, some way, Roman has to lose the belt. Because I think Roman Reigns is the one who's gonna have the belt at WrestleMania. It's not a for sure, but he should be. It would make sense just for the storytelling wise. So I don't know. How do you feel?
Before I tell you how I feel, if you're wondering what's the statistic he's referring to, it's the statistic that Roman Reigns has had, I believe, 18 matches since the brand split, and I think something like 14 of them have been against Owens or Jericho, or some combination of something like that. So that's what we mean when we say the same matches over and over. As far as the match, it's interesting because a day before the match was announced, I said that I thought there was going to be a U.S. title changing of hands situation. And I explained this to you because we were talking about what we thought was going to be coming up for the WrestleMania card. And now when this match was announced, now I'm happy we're able to talk about it. When this match was first announced, my first thought, besides that it's the same old crap, is that it's a handicap match, but the title is on the line. So, does the person who gets the pin win the title? So, does that mean Owens can get the pin and win the title? Does that mean Jericho gets the pin and wins the title? Because then wouldn't that kind of pit Owens and Jericho against each other? And so it makes it weird, but I can see why storyline wise they could use that against Owens and Jericho, because we've seen Owens and Jericho kind of talk about we are the champion. But now that actually one of them might be,
Unless they both pin them together at the same time, then they really are both the champion.
yeah, that's true. I can see that. That's actually a good point. But I don't see it happening. First of all, I'm not even sure. I'm not even sure I see Reigns losing to them. I find it interesting though that they're putting the title on the line again. Now I feel like he's gonna lose it, and my prediction, since nobody is aware, is that I think Owens actually wins the U.S. title, and I think somehow, some way, Jericho is jealous of this. Obviously, Jericho has been low key jealous of Owens this whole time. He's playing the best friend card and stuff, but we all kind of feel like Jericho's got something up his sleeve. So I think Jericho is going to be close to winning the title in this match, and Owens is going to somehow get the pin, steal the pin, and Owens is going to become the United States champion. And then Owens will go on to the Rumble and lose the Universal title, whether it's Jericho's fault or not. Jericho is going to be up in the cage, so I don't know if that'll make much of a difference. But I don't think Owens is going to walk out of the Rumble the Universal champion. But I do think he's going to come out tomorrow night as the United States champion. What are your thoughts?
Man, that's a possibility. I mean, I don't know. I could easily see Reigns just winning somehow, unless they add a stipulation or something. It all depends on the first segment of the show, how they pop it off, who's in the ring.
But do you think that Reigns beats Owens at the Rumble? Because I think knowing that, or having a feeling about who wins that one and who comes out of the Rumble champion, will give you a better idea of what might happen on tomorrow night's episode, unless they do another U.S. title match after.
I'm going to say, yeah, for Roman coming out of Rumble as the champ.
Okay, then. So if you think he's going to come out the Rumble as the Universal champ, wouldn't it make sense that they take the U.S. title off of him before that?
Yeah, so that's why Owens is going to be the champ.
That's exactly how I feel. You can make the case that Jericho is going to be the champion, but I just feel like to add more fuel to the Owens-Jericho thing, you need Owens to win the U.S. title and make Jericho even angrier.
Yeah, they should have Owens win. Hopefully they do. But at the same time, I love that whole matchup. But what else are they going to do now with Braun Strowman, Brock Lesnar, Goldberg? Who else is, they got to start announcing people for the Rumble.
As far as now, I think we can all just assume Lesnar. We know Lesnar and Goldberg are in it because they're starting the match off. We know Jericho's going to be third now, which is kind of funny because he'll be coming in to a match with Lesnar and Goldberg, which to me is just going to be comedic, seeing Jericho's reaction to coming in the ring with those two. I think we can assume Strowman's going to be in it. We can assume all of these guys are going to be in it. You know what I mean? It's just what they do with them going forward on the WrestleMania card, which me and you have been going back and forth about recently, and our predictions kind of do line up though, as far as what we expect to see at Mania. So I don't think any of these are crazy. You can let us know as the listener if you think something sounds wrong. But so far, our predictions for the Mania card have seemed consistent with each other, and they almost seem like no-brainers. If you want to get into your card, you could talk about your card.
Well, I don't have honestly, I don't have a full card in my mind, but I have certain matches that I feel are like maybe definite or strong possibilities. But at the same time, then I think to myself, how long's this Mania gonna be now with the brand splits? But basically, the first match on my mind, everybody knows if they've been listening for like the past, I don't know, 5 episodes, 6 episodes, uh, is Seth Rollins versus Triple H. That's number one. No brainer. Is Seth Rollins is he in the Rumble? Did he announce himself?
I don't think he's announced himself, but that's a case where I assume, like I said, that he's in the Rumble.
He can be in it.
I don't know if Triple H is going to cost him his spot in the Rumble.
Triple H was in last year's. Is he in this year's? Who knows?
Exactly. I don't know if Triple H is involved in costing Rollins the Rumble win. Would he be involved in the match, or would he just come out of nowhere and eliminate him?
Yeah, I don't know. But at the same time, the past couple of years with the Rumble, the later entries have won the Rumble. I want to see something where they have it like somebody, comes out pretty early or midway through and last. Not number 26, not number 30 winning. You know what I'm saying? I want to see like a 15 win or number freaking 12 come in and make it to the end. But who knows? I'm not going to get into too many details about the Rumble. But speaking of WrestleMania, Rollins, Triple H, Brock Lesnar, Goldberg, Strowman, I don't know. Owens, Jericho, I feel. And then there's Charlotte, I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. Bailey, maybe. Or a woman's fatal four-way or something. Again, well, they had a triple threat last year. I don't know, but for right now, it's Triple H, Rollins, Reigns to be determined, Owens, Jericho, and Brock Lesnar versus Goldberg.
As of right now, for me on the Raw side of the Mania card, I absolutely agree. I think Rollins versus Triple H is the almost universal, no pun intended, but the universal, what is the word I'm looking for? It's universally known.
He's the shoo-in.
Yes, that it should be Rollins versus Triple H. They've been hinting at it. The story hasn't come full circle yet, and it's been around for a while. Aside from that, Lesnar Goldberg seems like it's going to be Lesnar Goldberg 3. I guess they think by putting them in the ring first two in the Rumble that this is like their second kind of time going head to head.
Well, actually,
well, not including the one way back. I'm talking about since Goldberg's return anyway. And Owens and Jericho is another one that we kind of see happening. But this is why I think it's going to be for the U.S. title. And I believe you mentioned that Jericho has never won the U.S. title, and it's the one belt he hasn't won. So I think Owens actually goes into Mania as the U.S. champion, and Jericho beats him for it at Mania. That's just my prediction. As far as Reigns, I think he goes into the Rumble, into Mania as the Universal Champion, and this is where my Rumble winner prediction comes in, where I think Finn Balor goes on to WrestleMania to try to reclaim the title that he never lost.
Right.
as a heel.
I would love to see, at the Rumble that his music, and the lights go out.
I mean, it'll be awesome. I don't think many people can argue that he's got one of the best entrances, and at Mania though would be dope, even doper. His entrance at Mania would be incredible. Um, I think he's gonna be a heel though. I think on one of our first episodes I mentioned Balor Club because the club is kind of just in limbo now. I mean, they might be making a push for the tag titles, but they haven't looked formidable. They haven't looked threatening, and it's like they lack a leader since Styles is gone. And I think Finn Balor coming back as a heel, especially because they took the title off of him. Maybe he's mad. Maybe he wants it back. So that's what I see happening on the Raw side. Strowman is an interesting one. That's one that we can't seem to put our finger on. It maybe these predictions aren't correct, but if they are, it kind of leaves Strowman in limbo, and that's something that we haven't gotten a finger on.
Yeah, he can't be in the fucking Battle Royal.
It seems like it'll be a waste.
Yeah,
it's a waste if he
wasn't he already in it and he didn't win it.
I'm not sure, to be honest.
Corbin won instead.
Were they both in that one?
I'm not sure.
I do know Corbin won though.
Yeah, but I honestly, if we're gonna go into the Corbin segue, imagine a cross promotion, Corbin versus Strowman, Monster versus Big Man. I would love to see the clash, Mania.
We've gotten into this. If we can't find anything on the Raw card for Strowman, it could make sense that at Rumble they have a little Strowman Corbin face off. Two big guys who are hot right now. Two big guys that are definitely getting pushed right now. And if we could have them have a little face off and maybe set up a cross promotional match at Mania, that would be awesome.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Also, SmackDown. Ambrose won the Intercontinental belt. So let's see what's next for him. Is he gonna face Miz? You know what I'm saying? Who else? Ziggler. Who's it gonna be? Is it gonna be a ladder match for both brands? Like, what are they gonna do to incorporate everybody? Because now it's bigger, like a bigger roster. Because now you have to have the important matches for SmackDown, the important matches for Raw, and then put it all on one. Before it was just everybody was one, so we can gel together and make it work somehow. Now, no, each brand needs their light shined on them. And I look forward to seeing what they pull off. I believe if there's one company that can do it, it will be WWE. Because they've proven to do it over and over again.
You trying to get us put on a pre-show panel?
And that's all.
Trying to get us put on their Mania pre-show panel. But I'm glad you mentioned The Miz, because this is something that we clearly disagree on. Whether Miz wins the IC title back, I don't know. I think you could make the case that him and Ambrose feud all the way up till Mania, because now it's gotten more personal. They've gotten Renee Young involved. They've gotten Maurice involved. So this could be something I see going till Mania. But one thing I've been thinking for a while, which we disagree on, is that I think that the Miz's Mania opponent is Daniel Bryan.
That's another one. You're not the only person who I've heard say it. We spoke about it, and then I heard someone else say it, and they said they referenced back to Talking Smack, and all the Talking Smacks have, between them two, have clearly been promoted in a way where they're gonna fight.
No matter what seems to happen with The Miz, no matter what feud he's got going on, his displeasure with Daniel Bryan is always somewhere in the background. And it's interesting because we spoke about the SmackDown finish where Ambrose didn't get disqualified. That Miz didn't get disqualified for Maurice hitting Ambrose, and that would have ended the match and Miz would have retained. I can see a situation where he goes to Daniel Bryan, like, you got to overturn this decision because I should have been disqualified and I would have kept my belt, but Ambrose made the ref not, disqualify me, and that resulted in me losing the title. And I could see Daniel Bryan, because he doesn't like The Miz, saying, you know what, the referee made his decision, and that'll just add to it. Oh, everything seems to, no matter what feud Miz has, he's got a feud with Ambrose right now, and yet the Daniel Bryan situation seems to keep coming up. They say he's not medically cleared. I think he is. I think he can at least wrestle one more match. I think that's what they're going for. I think by them constantly putting it in our face that he's not medically cleared is kind of setting up for him getting medically cleared prior to Mania and finally seeing that blow off between Miz and Bryan.
For me, I hear where you're coming from, and maybe Brian's body can last one more, match. But mentally, I don't think he can.
Yeah, you brought this up to me, and I thought it was interesting because go for it.
As much as we love him as a character and Daniel Bryan, and we know, how much joy he brought to each fan. He brought the yes chant, and he invented, a phenomenon where everywhere they were doing it, all over at the Super fucking Bowl, they were doing it everywhere. You know what I mean? And we all think about that. And we would love to see Daniel Bryan go off with one last match the way he wants to do it. But I seen like the Bella show and the Diva show, not Diva Total Divas, the Bella show. I was watching that shit, and Daniel Bryan and Brie were living with John Cena and Nikki for a while, and it was getting to Daniel mentally, and as a family they had a discussion. It was like that he suffers from depression like severely. So and with his father and him getting away from wrestling, and then he was really down, and then the WWE always had something for him, but he was declining it due to his depression and him being away from wrestling. But he took the offer and he's around. But I don't know if he could do a match and then continue with his current role. It might be too hard for him. I don't know.
I can understand that side of it. I can understand that argument. In a way, I think you could also argue though that it might be good for him to end his wrestling career the way he wants to, because when it ended before, it ended suddenly, and you could argue that he probably didn't go out the way he wanted to go out, and this presents an opportunity at Mania against The Miz. I believe The Miz was one of his first opponents. I know The Miz was his mentor in, was it Tough Enough?
Yeah, no, NXT.
Or NXT. Yeah. Okay. So, it'll make his career kind of come full circle, and he could put a bow on it. It's Mania. Whether he can handle that, I don't know. But I think you could also make the argument that he'll finally have some control over the way he goes out.
You're right. That'll be beautiful. Either way, we love Daniel Bryan, and if we do get to see him at WrestleMania, it'll be amazing. It'll be an honor, and I'll be fucking happy.
Absolutely. No argument there. That we can agree on. As far as the rest of the SmackDown Mania card, again, Wyatt Orton we kind of think is an obvious one. That's almost like a shoo-in, similar to Rollins Triple H. The title match, though, is one that is more up in the air. Personally, I think it's going to be Styles versus Samoa Joe. And I know people might think like yes, that's a great match. People could agree there. But wow, would they push Joe that quickly? And that's a tough argument to make because it's Rumble and Joe still hasn't. It's almost Rumble time and Joe hasn't made his main roster debut. But I feel like it's coming at the Rumble, and Joe is a monster heel that could quickly come up the ranks on SmackDown. So if they could get the right kind of momentum for him, which I think he can build fairly quickly, I can see Styles versus Joe at Mania.
Yeah, that would be crazy. It's possible. It definitely is possible because they're both in the WWE. It all depends on what happens at Royal Rumble. That's why Royal Rumble is such a major pay-per-view every year. And once the Royal Rumble hits, you're on the road to WrestleMania. But altogether, Joe and Styles, will WWE do that and give them that spotlight? I mean, who knows? I would love to see it, but I could see AJ easily like being in a match with Ziggler or Corbin. You know what I mean?
I feel like that's not big enough.
But it might not be big enough. You might be right. Or you know what? It was just a hit last week when it was a triple threat.
They could bring it back.
You know what I mean? That could be a WrestleMania match. You know, and that'll have a way that you incorporate everybody, you know? But other than that, like the tag titles, what are they gonna do with that? Both brands. This is gonna be a big card for WrestleMania.
Yeah, when you mentioned it being 5 hours, I thought like this is perfect. Like in previous years, it would be 5 hours, and it'd be like, man, they're just trying to like drag it. But now it seems like they'll need 5 hours. Like they'll absolutely need 5 hours because we mentioned all these singles matches as potential WrestleMania matches, and yet we haven't mentioned either tag title. You mentioned the women's title a little bit. We didn't mention the SmackDown women's title. I didn't even mention the Raw women's title. Just so much. Are the cruiserweights involved? Like there's so much going on, and they'll absolutely need 5 hours. I don't know. I don't even know if I almost feel like one pair of tag titles might be left out. It's I don't know. This is a lot.
Think about the fact they're about to incorporate the UK title in a couple days.
Will they bring it onto the main show though too?
I don't know. Like nobody knows. But WWE is growing and changing, and it's great for wrestling all around. Anyway, like they have a lot of talent, and whatever they decide to do, they're they're lucky they have the network because it gives them a outlet, you know, to reach each audience. It's great, man. I love it.
Interesting idea I just thought of. Do you think they'd do something like this where the winner of the UK tournament ends up going to NXT instead of the WWE's main roster because there really is no secondary singles title for the men in NXT. And I know they don't have a large roster, but could they potentially incorporate it there and see, because you don't want too much going on. There's already the Intercontinental title on SmackDown, and that's already a small enough roster, so I can't see them bringing it onto SmackDown. And then they could bring it onto Raw, but it's almost like Raw has a hard time finding new spot. Like you've seen them struggle with the cruiserweights. It's like Raw can't find time for anything, and it would be interesting if they brought the UK title to NXT.
That would be, or maybe they just like bring the UK title round around pay-per-views because they'll have their own show going like 205 Live.
Okay, they could do that too. I'm just interested in what they do with it.
The UK belt could actually be sprinkled in through SmackDown, like the cruiserweight was with Raw.
I just feel like SmackDown is too tight of a window, and SmackDown does a great job at not having any like bullshit filler. So like to add something else, I don't know. I'll be interested to see what they do with it though. That tournament is, I believe, next week, January 14th and 15th. So we'll see from there. I'm looking forward to a great tournament though.
Yeah, a lot of great wrestling.
I believe that is pretty much all we've got for tonight's special edition or this morning's special edition, depending on when you're listening to us. I think we could wrap it up unless you got something to say.
Yeah, it was. I got one thing to say. I got a few things to say actually before we wrap it up.
Go ahead, cry.
Playoffs football has been great. SmackDown and Raw have been great. NXT has been great. I actually caught some of the last episode, and I'm looking forward to watching this upcoming episode. There's a lot of buzz going on about Wrestle Kingdom 11, Kenny Omega versus Okada. Dave Meltzer gave it a 6-star rating and said it might be the best match he's ever seen. I still have not seen it, but I'm gonna check that out. UFC, BJ Penn is fighting next week. And he's a legend, a living legend. He's on a losing streak, and he's fighting a young, upcoming, talented kid who might knock him the fuck out. But he loves the sport. He's not a sore loser. He keeps coming back and keeps dedicating himself to this life because this is his life, and he loves it, and that's why he's the living legend. But if you're into that stuff, check it out. If you're into us, check us out. Follow my man, Working Genius. Follow me. We'll drop our handles. Faking No Moves, at Faking No Moves, FAKINNOMOVES. And you are?
I am at Working Genius. I am The Working Genius, but it's only The Working Genius on Twitter, which I don't use. So don't look for me there. But at Working Genius, WORKINGENIUS, 1G. I don't fuck with them 2Gs, you feel me? I wish I had 2Gs right now, to be honest. I'm broke. But it's been a great episode. It was a little awkward for me, I gotta be honest. It's a bit uncomfortable to start it or to lead it. But hopefully I did a great job. Hopefully I didn't destroy what's been a good podcast up to this point. Follow us at No Politics Podcast. You can catch us on SoundCloud, coming very soon to iTunes. Catch us on Instagram. Follow us. Show love. And
Bundle up.
That's about it. Enjoy the rest of your day or your night. And we'll see you next week.